Lena had always carried more weight than she admitted, moving through her days with a quiet strength that no one bothered to notice. Her sister, Maya, relied on that strength more than anyone else. For years, Lena picked up the kids from school, cooked meals when Maya was too tired, and stepped in on weekends when Maya wanted a break. It had become routine, almost expected, and Lena convinced herself it was fine. The kids loved her. She loved them, and family helped family. That was the rule she lived by. But deep inside, she often wondered why she was always the one giving while Maya continued to take. Still, she pushed the thought away every time, believing that being useful was better than being angry. She never imagined that the truth behind it all was far darker than simple carelessness. That truth arrived on a calm Sunday evening. The house was unusually quiet, the air soft and warm. The kids had finally fallen asleep after a long day of games and homework. Lena moved around the living room, picking up stray toys, folding blankets and setting the place back into order. It was one of those nights where she felt tired in a slow, heavy way, the kind that pressed against her shoulders, that didn't break her. She rubbed her eyes, ready to sit down for a moment, when a faint buzz interrupted the silence. Maya's phone, forgotten on the kitchen counter, flashed with a message notification. Normally, Lena ignored the device completely. She respected privacy, even when Maya didn't always respect her time. But this time, the screen stayed lit long enough for Lena to catch a glimpse of the message preview. Did she still believe? They're yours? The words hit her like icy water. Her mind froze and her heartbeat quickened. She tried to convince herself it was a misunderstanding, maybe a conversation about something else, maybe a joke. But curiosity pushed her forward. She took a slow step toward the phone, her fingers trembling as she picked it up. She unlocked it, knowing she shouldn't, but unable to stop herself. A part of her wished she hadn't, but it was too late. The truth waited inside. The message wasn't a rare or new conversation. It was part of a long thread of private chat between Maya and someone Lena didn't recognize. But as she scrolled, she quickly realized the person on the other end was someone she once knew far too well. The shock almost made her drop the phone. Her past, the part she had worked so hard to leave behind, had been sitting inside Maya's life without her knowing. Maya had not only kept it from her, she had built her world around it while letting Lena carry the weight she didn't want to carry. The messages revealed everything. Maya talked openly about using Lena's help because it was easier this way. She mentioned how Lena owed her, though Lena couldn't imagine for what. She joked about how Lena always said yes, how dependable she was, how predictable. But the worst part wasn't the casual use of her. It was the secret about the kids. Their father, the man who had once broken Lena's trust years ago, wasn't just a distant name. He was in Maya's life. He had been for longer than Lena wanted to believe. And Maya had known this man had a history with Lena. She hid it, wrapped it in silence, and watched Lena build her life around helping her, all while knowing the truth could shatter everything. For a moment Lena couldn't breathe. The walls felt closer, the room seemed smaller. Her hands tightened around the phone as she reread the messages. There was no misunderstanding, no missing context. It was betrayal, plain and sharp. Maya had taken advantage of Lena's loyalty, used her kindness as a tool, and covered it all with lies. She let Lena carry every burden while she built a life from the very pieces Lena had once lost. Lena placed the phone down slowly. Her reflection in the dark oven glass stared back at her, wide-eyed and shaken. She felt anger rising, starting deep in her chest and spreading outward like a flame, looking for something to burn. It wasn't loud or wild. It was controlled, cold and steady. She didn't cry, didn't shout, didn't storm into the hallway to wake Maya's children. She simply stood there, as the truth settled inside her like heavy stones. Her heart ached. For the kids. They were innocent, unaware of the adults' choices. None of this was their fault. They loved her without hesitation, and she had given her heart to them without expecting anything in return. But now, even that love felt tangled with pain. The betrayal wasn't just between sisters. It had reached into every corner of Lena's life. Every sacrifice she had made, every weekend she had given away. Lena walked to the living room window and stared outside. The streetlights glowed softly, the night quiet and peaceful, so different from what she felt inside. She thought back to all the times Maya had rushed out the door without a word of thanks. All the nights Lena stayed up with a feverish child while Maya slept somewhere else. All the times she cancelled her own plans because Maya needed her. Just this once, even when it happened every single week. She thought of the birthdays she spent at home, the events she skipped, the dreams she put aside. She had given so much, never realizing she was giving it to someone who didn't value her at all. But now she knew. Now the truth sat between them, sharp and unforgiving. And with that truth came a new emotion. A growing desire for justice. A desire to take back what was stolen. A desire to make Maya feel even a fraction of the hurt she had caused. Still, Lena didn't move with rage. Instead, she walked calmly to the hallway, grabbed her bag and stood in the doorway. She took one last look at the quiet house, the soft toys, the tiny shoes lined near the door, the dim nightlight glowing near the stairs. Everything looked so normal, so peaceful, yet none of it felt the same anymore. Without a word, she stepped out and closed the door behind her. The truth had changed everything. And as Lena walked into the night, she knew the person she had been, the quiet helper, the reliable sister, the one who always said yes was gone. Something new was rising inside her. Something sharper. Something determined. The betrayal had woken a part of her she never thought she would need. The part that was ready for revenge. Lena returned home the next day, her mind a storm she couldn't quiet. The sunlight streaming through the kitchen window felt almost cruel, illuminating a house she no longer recognized. Every toy scattered on the floor, every sticky mark on the table, every small detail of the life she had maintained for years, now felt like a reminder of the lies Maya had spun around her. Lena moved through the morning routine with mechanical precision, feeding the kids breakfast, making sure they were dressed, tying shoelaces, and packing school bags. But beneath the surface, her thoughts were far from the ordinary. She was planning. She was calculating. And with each passing minute, the desire for revenge pulsed stronger. She started small, observing Maya in her natural environment. Every word, every movement, every casual smile was now subject to scrutiny. Lena noticed things she had never seen before. The way Maya dodged questions about her past, the subtle ways she shifted blame when something went wrong, the carefully crafted charm that hid selfishness beneath warmth. Lena had lived in this house for years, yet suddenly she felt like a stranger discovering it for the first time. The betrayal had peeled back layers, and what remained was raw, exposed, and urgent. Lena began to document everything mentally, making note of the inconsistencies, the hidden truths, the little cracks she could exploit if she chose. But it wasn't just observation. Lena felt herself changing internally. The anger was no longer a whisper. It had become a constant companion, whispering suggestions and fueling thoughts she hadn't entertained before. What would it feel like to expose Maya, to show the world the careful manipulations and hidden lies she had built her life upon? Lena imagined confrontations, conversations, revelations that would leave Maya stunned and scrambling for excuses. She pictured the satisfaction of watching someone who had relied on her kindness finally face the consequences of their actions. Yet even as these images flickered vividly in her mind, doubt crept in. Lena thought of the children. They're innocent. Trust in both her and Maya. They weren't part of the deception. They hadn't hidden anything. They were pure, untouched by the darkness between the sisters. Any action Lena took could harm them, and that thought made the fire inside her flicker unevenly. Days turned into weeks, and Lena's internal conflict deepened. Every decision became a struggle. She found herself thinking in dualities: action or patience, revenge or mercy, exposure or silence. At night, when the house was quiet and the children asleep, she would lie in bed, staring at the ceiling, her mind racing through every scenario. She imagined sending emails revealing every secret, confronting Maya in front of friends and family, or even quietly undermining her until she felt the weight Lena had carried for years. Each idea promised a kind of release, a way to balance the scales. But then her mind would shift, and she would feel the pull of compassion, the knowledge that destruction could never truly restore what had been stolen. Her emotions became a tangled web of intensity and hesitation. Anger was intertwined with guilt. Planning intertwined with reflection. Every smile she gave the kids, every gentle word, every bedtime story was layered with the secret knowledge she now held. She could no longer move through life in simplicity. Every moment was charged with potential action, every interaction loaded with hidden meaning. Even small gestures from Maya's soft tones, fleeting apologies, or casual questions were now interpreted as manipulations, tests, or calls for punishment. Lena realized that betrayal didn't just change the relationship. It altered perception entirely. She began testing boundaries subtly. Conversations with Maya became a silent game of observation and inference. Lena would ask innocuous questions and watch for hesitations, listen for slips of information, and carefully store every detail in her mind. She noted how easily Maya deflected, how rehearsed her words sometimes sounded, and how much she relied on Lena's compliance. These moments, small as they seemed, built a mental map of power and vulnerability. Lena's desire for revenge wasn't impulsive anymore. It was structured, precise, almost strategic. She wasn't just angry, she was patient, biding her time, and planning with meticulous care. Yet the presence of the children complicated everything. Lena had a deep love for them, a protective instinct that made her reconsider every thought. She caught herself thinking, if I destroy Maya, will I destroy them too? Will they lose the only mother they know? The question haunted her, making her realize that revenge might not bring the satisfaction she imagined. It might just continue the cycle of hurt. Every night she wrestled with this moral dilemma. Could she pursue justice without harming the innocent? Or would any action inherently carry collateral damage? One evening, as Lena watched the children laughing over a simple game of cards, she felt a pang of clarity. They were the only untouched part of this deception, the only beings whose hearts weren't tainted by lies or manipulation. She realized she had a choice. She could let anger dictate her actions and risk destroying more than Maya, or she could find a way to reclaim her own life without passing on the pain. The revelation was almost frightening in its simplicity. It wasn't about revenge anymore. It was about control, regaining autonomy over the years she had lost, the weekends sacrificed, the nights spent soothing someone else's chaos. Despite this clarity, the planning didn't stop. Lena's mind remained active, calculating, imagining outcomes. She envisioned conversations, confrontations, and exposures, but now she balanced each scenario against potential harm to the children. She considered letting the family know the truth, but only if it could be done without shattering trust or creating lasting trauma. She analyzed how to set boundaries, how to reclaim her time and space, and how to assert herself without becoming someone she would later regret. The internal struggle was constant, a tension between desire for justice and the moral imperative to protect innocence. The psychological pressure began to reshape her daily life. Lena found herself more alert, more sensitive to tone, and hyper-aware of dynamics that she had previously ignored. She noticed small manipulations, subtle gaslighting, and the ways Maya unconsciously leaned on her. Each observation fueled a mental narrative where Lena was both victim and strategist. Hurt, but empowered. She rehearsed conversations in her mind, planned her words, and imagined how Maya would respond. It wasn't just revenge anymore. It was preparation for a confrontation that could redefine their relationship entirely. And yet, even as Lena prepared, the question lingered like smoke in the air. Would revenge truly satisfy her? Could the years of sacrifice be balanced by exposing lies? Or would it leave her empty, tainted by the same bitterness she wished to punish in Maya? The tension was relentless, gnawing at her every moment. She became almost obsessive in thought, carefully weighing every option, anticipating every reaction, and considering every consequence. Her life became a tightrope walk between desire and restraint, between fury and prudence, and between self-preservation and compassion. Lena's struggle reached a boiling point one rainy afternoon. The kids were napping, and Maya was on a call in the next room, speaking in her usual smooth, rehearsed tone. Lena sat quietly, staring at the rain streaking the window, feeling the weight of every decision pressing down. In that silence, she recognized the stakes fully. The choice she made now could redefine her life, reshape her relationship with the children, and either release or imprison her emotionally. The desire for revenge pulsed, strong and tempting, but so did the understanding that true power lay in self-control and moral clarity. In that moment, Lena realized that conflict wasn't just external. It was entirely internal. She didn't need to act immediately. She needed to navigate the storm within herself. She had to decide whether to let anger dictate her life, or to reclaim her strength without harming others. The choice was not simple, and the tension was nearly unbearable. But Lena understood that her next move would define her entirely. The planning, the observation, the emotional turmoil, all of it had prepared her for a confrontation that would test her limits, challenge her morality, and ultimately reveal the kind of person she truly was. She looked at the quiet house, at the children sleeping peacefully upstairs, and whispered to herself, "I will not be broken. I will not be used. But I will also not destroy what I love." The words settled in her chest like a promise. The path forward was unclear, but for the first time, Lena felt a measure of control. Revenge was no longer a simple, impulsive desire. It was a test, a trial, and an opportunity to redefine her life on her own terms. Her next step would require courage, patience, and strategy, and she was ready to take it. Lena felt the weight of the decision pressing on her like never before. Days of observation, planning, and internal struggle had led to this moment, and now everything came down to a single choice. The children were asleep upstairs, their gentle, breathing a reminder of what was truly important. But Maya had just walked into the living room, dripping from the sudden downpour outside, her expression a mixture of fatigue and irritation. Lena watched her carefully, her eyes steady, noting every detail, the way Maya's shoulders tensed, the nervous glance toward the children's toys, the slight hesitation before speaking. All these small movements were clues, markers of vulnerability that Lena could exploit if she chose to. "I didn't expect it to rain this hard," Maya muttered, shaking water from her hair. She seemed distracted, unaware of the storm brewing. In Lena's mind, Lena's throat felt dry as she prepared herself, rehearsing the words she had practiced silently for weeks. She could see the moment clearly. The confrontation where everything spilled out, where Maya would be forced to confront the truth she had hidden for so long. The image was sharp, vivid, almost intoxicating. Lena imagined the shock in Maya's eyes, the trembling voice, the excuses that would crumble under scrutiny. She could finally reclaim some of the power she had lost. But then Lena paused, letting her gaze drift to the doorway where the children had just passed, playing quietly, unaware of the tension. Their innocence struck her with unexpected force. They were the reason Lena had stayed silent for so long. The reason she had carefully navigated the lies without confrontation. Could she really go through with exposing Maya fully, knowing it might harm them? The thought cut through the fire of anger and made her hesitate. The revenge she had so carefully planned now carried consequences she hadn't fully considered. The children's trust, their stability, and the bond they shared with both their mother and Lena herself. Lena took a deep breath, steadying herself. The room felt smaller, the air thick with tension. Maya was still unaware of what Lena knew, still assuming that everything remained under her control. But Lena had the upper hand in knowledge. She had observed, noted, and calculated. She could dismantle the life Maya had carefully constructed with just a few words, a few truths revealed at the right time. The temptation was almost irresistible. Lena felt a surge of power, a sense of control she hadn't experienced in years. For a moment, she imagined the satisfaction of seeing Maya stumble, the relief of finally unburdening herself, the triumph of asserting her worth and strength. Yet, as the image of confrontation grew sharper, Lena felt the familiar tug of doubt. She thought about the children again, their small faces, their laughter, the way they trusted both her and their mother. They had no part in the betrayal, and any action Lena took could fracture their sense of safety and love. The moral dilemma weighed heavily, a chain around her heart. Could revenge truly bring satisfaction if it came at the cost of the children's happiness? Could she reclaim her dignity without causing harm? The questions pressed into her chest, slowing her pulse even as the anger burned beneath her skin. Maya finally noticed Lena's intensity, her brows furrowing as she sensed something was wrong. "Is everything okay?" she asked, her tone tentative. Lena met her gaze directly, steady and unflinching. The words had been rehearsed, but now they felt heavy with weight, carrying years of hurt, sacrifice, and betrayal. "I know the truth, Maya," Lena said quietly. The sentence cut through, the tension like a knife. Maya froze, eyes widening as recognition and fear flickered across her face. The confrontation began, but it wasn't as simple as Lena had imagined. Maya's reaction was immediate, defensive, panicked, and full of justifications. She stumbled over her words, attempting to explain, to excuse, to soften the blow. Lena listened, her mind sharp, noting every excuse, every half-truth, every flicker of guilt. Maya wasn't a villain in the traditional sense. She was flawed, human, and capable of rationalizing her selfishness. The anger Lena had felt so clearly, before now tangled with a strange understanding. Maya hadn't sought to hurt her directly. She had acted out of fear, convenience, and habit, weaving a web that trapped everyone except herself. Lena's thoughts raced as the conversation continued. Every word from Maya offered an opportunity for revenge, yet each also presented a risk. She could expose Maya fully, tell the children, inform the extended family, and watch as Maya's carefully constructed life unraveled. It would bring immediate satisfaction, a sense of justice finally served. but it would also cause irreparable harm, splitting the children's world apart and leaving scars that might never heal. Lena weighed the options carefully, feeling the familiar fire of anger and the growing pull of restraint. The climax of her internal struggle came as Maya's voice trembled, showing real guilt for the first time. Lena recognized it immediately, the moment of vulnerability where she could strike or step back. Her heart raced, her pulse loud in her ears. The decision that had loomed for weeks now demanded action. For a brief, suspended moment, everything seemed possible. She could reclaim her power, assert her worth, and satisfy the years of frustration. Or she could choose mercy, protecting the innocent, and redefining strength on her own terms. Lena exhaled slowly, feeling the tension in her body begin to shift. She saw the children, their quiet presence a grounding force she hadn't acknowledged until now. Revenge could wait. Justice didn't always require exposure, humiliation, or confrontation. Sometimes, the strongest action was setting boundaries and reclaiming one's life. Lena made her choice. "I'm stepping back," she said softly but firmly. "No more weekends. No more late nights. You take responsibility for your own family." Maya's expression froze, shock and disbelief crossing her face. She opened her mouth, started to protest, but Lena didn't let her. The decision wasn't about punishment anymore. It was about reclaiming control without spreading harm. Lena felt a strange mix of relief and sorrow. Relief that she had made a conscious choice. Sorrow that the betrayal had forced her into this moment. She realized that power didn't always come from exposing lies or inflicting pain. Sometimes it came from choosing restraint, protecting the innocent and asserting personal boundaries. Lena hugged the children tightly, whispering words of love and reassurance. She felt their warmth, their trust, and their dependence on her as a stabilizing force. It was clear that the path she chose would allow her to maintain her connection with them while removing herself from Maya's manipulations. The anger was still there, simmering beneath the surface, but it was no longer in control. She felt stronger, more centered, and more capable of moving forward. In the days that followed, Lena adjusted to her new life. She set boundaries clearly and firmly, refusing to allow Maya to rely on her at the expense of her own needs. She focused on her own work, her personal goals, and her relationship with the children, which remained intact because she chose to protect them. The internal fire of revenge had cooled into a steady awareness of her own worth, her own agency, and her ability to make decisions that honored both herself and those she cared about. Through the confrontation, Lena learned that revenge was not the ultimate solution. Acting out of anger could satisfy a fleeting moment, but it carried consequences that might echo indefinitely. Real strength came from careful thought, deliberate choices, and understanding the broader impact of one's actions. Lena recognized that her life had been shaped by sacrifice and loyalty, but it would now be defined by self-respect, control, and wisdom. By walking away from immediate revenge, Lena felt a freedom she hadn't known in years. The betrayal still hurt, but it no longer dominated her thoughts. She had reclaimed her power not through destruction, but through clarity and choice. She had confronted the truth, faced the temptation of retribution, and emerged with a stronger sense of herself. The children remained safe. Maya was confronted, but not destroyed. And Lena learned that the path to justice sometimes required courage, patience, and the wisdom to protect what truly mattered. In the end, Lena realized that revenge might feel satisfying in the moment, but it rarely heals. True resolution comes from understanding, boundaries, and the courage to reclaim one's life without spreading harm. She had made that choice, and as she moved forward, She did so with a renewed sense of purpose, a steady heart and a clear mind. The storm inside her had passed, leaving a calm strength that would guide her for years to come.